Welcome to Fire Engineering's Training Minutes. I'm Clinton Crafton with Advanced Rescue Solutions, and today we're going to be talking about a growing problem in our industry that a lot of people haven't run into yet, but all of us will eventually, sooner or later, and that's high rack shelving collapse. Warehousing is exploding throughout the nation, and even without warehousing, high rack shelving is becoming more and more common in a lot of different places. And unfortunately, we continue to have operators that aren't familiar with their equipment, or building owners that overload their racks. And we can end up with situations like this where somebody ends up trapped. A quick look at YouTube, you'll find all kinds of videos that show these happening as they happen. And it's really dramatic just how quickly the shelving units can collapse. Obviously, our first priority is going to be firefighter safety. We don't want to be part of the problem, we have to be part of the solution. And so now, let's take a look and watch as our firefighters start attacking this problem that exists behind us. So our firefighters are going to move in and start working on the problem. And as we look at this scene, it might look like something out of a Hollywood movie, but it's actually very representative of what's going to happen when you have a high rack shelving collapse. In fact, you can look on the internet and see scenes just like this from a lot of different places. As you approach, you're going to be thinking about a couple of different things, just like you would any other rescue. What do I have? What do I need? And what am I going to do? What's my rescue action plan? So as these firefighters are walking up, they're trying to determine how many victims do we have and where are those victims? We might be able to use building security cameras, aisle cameras, things like that, witnesses, and noises of the victims themselves to determine what the last scene point is and where we're working to. Keep in mind that as we look at this scene, we have to think about this like we would a semi-truck involved in a car accident. What's in there? Hazmats and different chemicals that could be involved. So take a look at the building, what they store, and find out what you're dealing with, because you will have spilled product as well. As they're working in, they're going to start with a delayering process, grabbing the things that are easy to get to as they work toward the victim that they've identified. Next, they're going to have to worry about stabilization. Any of these beams and all these different heavy objects have to be stabilized to make sure that they don't slide or cascade down on the rescuers, because obviously rescuer safety is our #1 priority. Next, as they work deeper into the scene, they're probably going to get to a point where they're going to have to do some cutting. And that could be any number of things. Hydraulic tools work really well on the metal shelving units. Sawzalls will work well, different types of cutting tools and things like that. However, as you get into the bulk of the pile, you might find things that you didn't expect. In this case, we've got a fork truck in there. Now, fork trucks can't be cut nearly as easily in different points as the shelving units themselves, so we might have to work around things. As we're removing, we also have to think about where we're going with the debris pile. Kind of like working with a trench collapse. You can't just dump the dirt back in the trench. Same thing here. You can't just make another pile that's going to be in your way. This is going to have to go someplace. And a human chain might work out really well to be able to carry all this outside of the actual scene itself. And as they continue deeper into this, we're going to see that they're going to have to work in smaller and smaller confined spaces, while at the same time being very concerned about the potential collapse hazard and making sure that they stabilize as they go. On these scenes, depending on how many people have been confirmed trapped and how big the scene is, we might find specialty teams such as collapse teams that we need, hazmat teams, things like that, search dogs, drones, any number of things that we can use to get a better size up of the actual scene itself. As we look at this particular scene, one thing that we can notice is behind us, we do still have high rack shelving that's standing. If those shelves have been hit with any of the debris from the first collapse, they've now been weakened. And they will also have to be stabilized or captured. They can be tied back to walls, tied together, or stabilized with the same types of things that we would use for building or vehicle stabilization. Struts, pneumatic shoring, things like that. As the scene develops and we get more and more people, obviously we're going to put the incident command system in place. We'll have safety officers, but we're going to need to worry about safety officers from different points. In any other scene that we work in, a general safety officer is able to take a good 30,000-foot view of the scene. Here, much like collapse or a large fire scene, we're going to have multiple safety officers looking at different points on this pile to make sure that we don't get into trouble and we don't have something fall. As these guys are making their cuts, you can see that the hydraulic tool is working really well here. We've found that reciprocating saws work well as well, band saws, metal cutting tools, things like that. Anytime you're cutting metal with anything other than the hydraulics, just be aware of where the sparks are going and what types of things you might run into. As you can see, we finally made access to the victim. We'll stabilize as best that we can in the confined space and then get them out of the scene and into a safe spot to be able to prevent any injuries to them while we work on definitive care. As you can see, there was a lot of work involved to make this quick rescue, but there are still victims behind us, and it's an all-day long-term kind of event that we're looking at. Hopefully this has given you some information. Like I said, please do some more research on this because it is a problem that we're all going to be faced with eventually. For Fire Engineering's Training Minutes, I'm Clinton Crafton. Thanks for joining us.